And we're back with drug policy expert Kevin Sabet. Now, Kevin, earlier in our interview, you mentioned that there are large corporations that are marketing THC, marijuana, making a lot of money off of all of this. In your work in media and interviews, you've referred to this as big marijuana, and you've compared this to powerful corporate players like big tobacco. I'm wondering, can you tell us more about these corporate interests and how they collaborate to affect the policy
Yeah.
environment in Canada and the
Mm.
United States?
Yeah, so absolutely. So, I think people have this mistaken impression because marijuana was always associated with the counterculture. It was sort of against the man, against corporations, right? It was a way to express yourself in the 70s that you did not want to do things that like a square would do, a corporate man. And now in this century, it's been completely the opposite. It is not mom and pop little businesses that are running these marijuana shops, these producers, the folks that are selling this, the retailers. It is very much concentrated, which is not surprising, among a few small companies, and I'm sorry, a few large companies, and it's actually a very bad business, American cannabis. I mean, if you're getting into the cannabis business now in either country, you're going to be out of business in a year or two. Very good chance. It's not a good business for many reasons. The underground market, the black market, is thriving, so you're competing with that. But you're also competing with these large corporations, many of whom have been are tied to the tobacco companies. So you actually have you sort of big tobacco getting involved. Altria, $2 billion investment in Canada. Altria is the old name for Philip Morris, who gave us the Marlboro Man. It is the opposite of public health, the opposite of worrying about people's safety. Um, you then have these large brands in Canada like Tilray, Organigram, which just bought a few other companies, and they're buying up all the small companies. And they absolutely affect legislation in both on both sides of the border. And I've seen this in Ottawa and Washington, where it's very difficult to have reforms of the law. I mean, the United States has virtually no restrictions in these different states that have legalized on cannabis. It's unlimited THC levels. The packaging is attractive to kids. It's cartoon characters. I mean, they'll have a few things that say, well, you can't, do an ad that reaches 30% of youth if your audience is, 30% youth. There's zero enforcement of that. It's a joke. In Canada, thankfully, when C-45, which was the bill that passed on this, it did put in some restrictions. So not surprisingly, Canada's restrictions are more stringent, as they are with almost all food and drugs for cannabis. So you have more plain packaging in Canada. You have less of the cartoon characters, which is good. And you're actually beginning to see warning labels, which I do applaud. But there's a lot more we can do on both sides of the border that these industries have been very resistant because they rely on a model like any other company where they really need heavy users in order to profit. They are not in a business of promoting so-called responsible use. That would go against their profits.
And how was big marijuana pushed back against critics like yourself?
Well, they push back all the time. They're the ones with the money. We're a small nonprofit organization with a few people on the team. They obviously have armies of lobbyists. So, for example, in certain states that we've gone to in the U.S., where we've said, all right, we get that marijuana is legal, but maybe we shouldn't have a cartoon character promoting it. Maybe we shouldn't have a pot shop 300 feet from a daycare center that is technically not a school, but it actually has younger kids in it. So it's a private daycare. Uh, so it doesn't fall under the normal, maybe local zoning provision that says you can't have it near a public school. But what about these private daycares? Or, maybe we shouldn't have billboards. They have pushed back against all of that. And in Canada, they've done the same. We've promoted different ways where, for example, actually the Quebec model, which is more of a state owned model, less of a corporate profit model, we've tried to propose in various provinces. And we get a ton of pushback because unfortunately, the marijuana executives have become so normalized and sort of embedded with politicians. And I would say this is of all parties. It's not one party that's only guilty.
Well, it's a
And
quick
it's
question just
become
in
much
20
more
seconds.
accepted.
Kevin, sorry to interrupt you, but just in
Mhm.
20 seconds, what does it look like
Please.
when they push back against you?
Well, it looks like armies of lobbyists that are promoting misinformation and disinformation to party leaders in the provinces. It's them saying, we don't need to have more restrictions. We need to have less restrictions. We need to become more profitable, not less profitable. And so they come in and they'll fund candidates sometimes. They'll come in and do, sort of favors in sort of unofficial / official ways with members. We've seen this, and it's very difficult to push back against.
That's deeply concerning. We'll hear more about the fight against these lobbyists when we get back from the break. See you guys soon.